This is the Galaxy S20, and over the last 7 years, I've used every single Samsung flagship, from the Galaxy S6 till the Galaxy S20. And this is the first one they did a lot of things right with. And in the last few years, Samsung phones have really shaped up to become the de facto Android smartphone, even way better than the Google Pixels of the world. And it's been 2 years since its launch, and does it still hold up in 2022? Is it a good option in 2022? And this is my Galaxy S20 review. Honestly, there are a lot of things that I like about the Galaxy S20, but there are also a few things that I hate about it. So I'll be covering the design, display, camera, performance, battery and software, and my final thoughts about it. And I cannot talk for the Galaxy S20 Plus or the S20 Ultra, which both are totally different phones compared to the Galaxy S20. So with that, let's start with the design. It's very simple, and that's pretty good. Since it is a smaller one on the S20 line, it's pretty compact, and the aspect ratio is pretty narrow, which makes it somewhat weird to hold in my hands, but it's compact nonetheless. It's a metal and glass sandwich like other Samsung flagships. It weighs about 163 grams and it's reasonably thick, just under 8mm. The left has nothing apart from the antenna bands. The right has the volume and power buttons, and they're pretty clicky. The top has the SIM card slot and a microphone. The bottom houses the primary microphone, USB-C port and the speakers. This is a stereo setup along with the earpiece, which do get loud enough but not the best stereo experience out there. The back has a triple camera array tucked nicely on a camera bump. It looks very generic, but that's totally fine. The front has a small hole punch in the middle for the front camera. The bezels are small overall, but there is a slight chin at the bottom. The haptics are very strong, and I don't really like the haptics on the S20. It's way too strong and it feels like a cheap phone sometimes. The curved back is really comfortable to hold for a longer period of time. It does have IP68 and wireless charging, and this is one of my favorite features where you can actually wirelessly charge other devices from the Galaxy S20. Pretty cool. I do wish it had a matte glass back like this iPhone 13 Pro, since I feel like it gets smudged with fingerprints quickly. Honestly, the design is not bad. Is it very generic looking? Yes, but at the same time it got the job done, and Samsung has thankfully moved away from this design to a newer camera bumpy design, which looks actually good, to be honest. Alright, let's talk about this display. It is one of the best I've seen on a phone, apart from the iPhone 13 Pro. It's a 6.2-inch 1440p 120Hz AMOLED display, and this is by far amazing to look at. No matter what, under bright sunlight or even during no light, it is very color accurate and there are no faults with this display. Except for one small nitpick which I'll get to in a minute. I am really happy that Samsung struck a balance with the curvature of this display. It's not too curved that you would notice it or you would be hampered by it on a daily basis. And it makes the bezels thin overall. This 120Hz display though, it's really smooth. Even if you're coming from a 90Hz display, you can notice the difference. Even after 2 years, it does still hold up to newer flagships. Except that you have to use this on 1080p to use 120Hz. Now, you're not gonna notice the quality hit since it is a small display, but if you do look close up, you can see the difference, but it is up to you if you want higher resolution or higher refresh rate. I would choose the higher refresh rate any day, as it makes the overall user experience better. The bottom houses the in-display fingerprint scanner, which is the ultrasonic one like every other Samsung phone, which means it can work under any conditions. Nonetheless, it is like one of the best displays I have seen. Like, it is really close to being like the best. Yeah, it is not really bright or it is not the highest like refresh rate we can get, but it is still one good of a display that you can get on a phone. Did I just start talking about the cameras this early? Yes, but that's cause they are really good. Let me go through the specs. There's a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 12 megapixel wide and a 64 megapixel telephoto camera, which does 3x optical zoom. Both the wide and telephoto have OIS. Now this is one good of a camera setup. More or less, Samsung's image processing has improved significantly over the last 2 years, and they have struck a balance with the saturation and the contrast on their photos. But I do feel that they do their processing way too aggressively, and sometimes it's very bad. Skin tones are more or less natural, but Samsung's portrait mode has been really good lately with good edge detection. The only gripe I do have with the S20 are that the night mode shots aren't that great. With some voodoo magic, the 30x space zoom can also take photos of the moon. and they're decent, but at the same time it's shocking that a phone can take photos of the moon. But here's the thing, it takes a long while to process all these photos, and it does take a fair bit of time to capture shots sometimes. I'll dive deeper into this during the performance section. The video quality is really good, right in line with how the iPhone would perform in many scenarios. Colors are accurate, the videos are crisp, and they don't lose out on detail at all. Autofocus is very fast and it doesn't mess with skin tones. Now it can even shoot in 8K, but it's limited to 24 frames, and honestly 4K looks much better than the 8K video. Now the whole reason why I'm shooting this part of the video outside is to show you that the camera system on the S20 is amazing. This entire part of this video is being shot on the S20, and as you can see, the shot is perfect, and most of my videos have been shot with the S20. Something that I really like that Samsung phones have natively is the Pro Video mode, which lets you dial in the right settings and you get a lot of granular controls as well. This is something that the iPhone should most definitely get to be called as the Pro iPhone. The real downside would be that it falls apart a lot when it gets dark. It tries to keep up, but the video is very grainy by then. The front houses a 10 megapixel camera and the photos coming out of it are good. The colors are accurate, the photos are very sharp, and they pack a lot of detail. And this front camera has autofocus, something that the iPhone 14 Pro is rumored to get. But the video coming out of the front camera isn't really that good. Right now I am shooting on it. It can do at up to 4K 60 FPS. But at the same time, I do feel that the video is grainy even on good lighting. And as you can see, there's a lot of rolling shutter as well in the video, which is bad. But as the light dips, the video gets really grainy, and yeah, at low light situations it's very bad. Nonetheless, this is one good camera system. Even a lot of mid-ranges are not that good as the S20, and I feel like yeah, it holds itself up pretty good even in 2022. I'm pretty sure you can get a lot of stellar shots with the S20 even now. So let's talk about the software. One UI. Samsung was generally known for bloated software, slow updates, and it was terrible as you went on using the phone for 2 or 3 years. But One UI in the last 3 years has become really good. It's minimal and smooth, but has a lot of useful features thrown into it. Samsung has also fixed their software update game. The Galaxy S20 has gotten 2 major updates already, and it will get another one by the next year. And those updates are delivered even faster. Samsung delivers monthly patches on time or even early sometimes. And that's not all. Samsung is now promising at least 4 years of major software updates for its newer flagships. And finally, it does not feel slow at all. It does feel similar to how it felt from day one, but with some occasional stutters here and there. But it is really consistent, animations are very smooth, and it really does not feel half-baked like Samsung's older software. Honestly, I never really liked Android 12's Material You theming. I felt that it really felt weird. But Samsung's implementation of Material You was really good, and it looks way better than the Pixel experience as well. I also like the little touches they add to the operating system, and I do feel that it looks way more aesthetic compared to Pixel 6. But huge props to Samsung for significantly improving their software over the last few years. I feel like Samsung's One UI is the best Android skin you can get apart from the Pixel Experience UI. Now I've saved the worst bits for the last, but a sub to this channel won't be a bad idea at all. It won't be a mess like that. So the Galaxy S20 came with both the Exynos 990 and the Snapdragon 865, and I currently have the Exynos one since it is the one which is globally available. And let me get this straight, it is one hot pile of steaming shit. Fun fact, because of the overheating, the back panel on my Galaxy S20 actually started lifting out. I have never had this happen with any phone till now. That's totally weird. Now performance isn't really that great. There are a lot of comparison videos comparing both the Exynos and the Snapdragon versions, and clearly the Snapdragon one runs cooler and faster than the Exynos one. And not just that, here's an iPhone XR compared to the Galaxy S20. The iPhone XR was released in 2018 and still performs faster than the Galaxy S20. What really hampers the performance is that it heats up a lot. And not just that, it throttles back a lot and it becomes really choppy after a while. The Exynos version of the S20 heats up even during light tasks. And remember how I said the camera does take a bit to process the photos? Well, when you use the camera continuously for like 10 or 15 minutes, it becomes so hot that the camera becomes really slow at capturing the photos, and guess what? It even closes the camera app sometimes. And look at the transitions between these 3 lenses. It's pretty laggy, and not just that, the image processing is better on the Snapdragon one. For day-to-day tasks, it is pretty much fine. You'll get through it, but it does overheat like crazy. There are a lot of factors that the Exynos 990 affects in terms of user experience, but one of the biggest one it does and it affects significantly is the battery. The battery life gets a big hit. Since the processor gets hot frequently, battery life has not been great. The capacity is not an issue. It has a pretty big 4000 mAh battery. That's actually big for something this small, and it barely gets through a full days of use with some light to mild tasks. If you do want good battery life, you can go back to 60Hz and it would last a bit longer, but because the processor does get too hot, the battery also gets hot with it. And this makes the whole phone feel so hot to hold in the hands. And it's also not good for your battery, as it will significantly hamper the battery longevity. It's not that great now and it will get worse quickly. Right now mine does hold up fine, but I have to charge it in the evening every single day since it dies quickly. All the issues I really talked about in these last two segments are for the smaller S20 with the Exynos one. As far as I know, the Snapdragon one was really good compared to the Exynos version. So in the end, do I really recommend the Galaxy S20? If you want a premium phone with a small design and like for a cheaper price, the Galaxy S20 is a great option. But other than that, I would really recommend you to get the Galaxy S20 FE, which has a bigger battery and a bigger screen. But the only con with it is that it has a bad display, but other than that, it is a good phone overall. And I'm really happy that Samsung has fixed all its shortcomings with the Galaxy S21 and the S22, which both are amazing phones. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. This is Sankew, and I'll see you guys in the very next video. Peace. And also would put you in the mini chode squad.